Lawrence. And MP Lawrence, please.
Thank you very much. At the last meeting, you were kind enough to stay a little extra time, and maybe you'd indulge us again there, Minister. But our last exchange, I thought, was respectful, and I was proud of it, and I hope that this one will be as well. I would ask you to keep your responses as brief as you can, so that Canadians can get the full response to their questions. So, the first question I'm going to ask you is relatively straightforward. Could you please tell me what the growth rate per capita and real GDP in Canada was in the first quarter of this year?
Canada, according to the IMF, predicts that Canada next year will have the highest growth rate in the G7. That is very positive. And we also, as I said in my opening remarks, Canada has attracted, on a per capita basis, more foreign investment than any G7 country in the first 6 months of this year. In total dollar terms, Canada is the third most attractive destination for foreign investment.
I appreciate that, Minister. I would,
that's relevant to GDP per capita.
I don't disagree. I would just like an answer to my question, if you could be kind enough to respond. Just a number.
I've responded about where Canada's GDP is, and I think that Canadians should take comfort from the fact that we're predicted to have the strongest economic growth in the G7.
Per capita. So,
we've been talking about debt and deficits, and the overall growth of GDP is the relevant
number there. There is an issue here, and you aren't responding to it, and I think it's important to have intellectual honesty in this conversation. I'm asking you about GDP per capita. Canada's population has swelled in recent years, which has masked our GDP per capita, which is per individual. Each Canadian is getting poorer. They're getting poorer, Minister. This is an issue. So I'm asking you again, just a number. What was GDP per capita in the first quarter, the second quarter, or the third quarter?
Mr. Lawrence, you and I actually have had very respectful exchanges, and I'm grateful for that. But I have to say, after your leader's performance last week, where he jumped to accusations of terrorism, alarming all Canadians, and after the vote of your party to fail to support Ukraine, it is a bit rich to take this.
You laid out in the beginning of the meeting that, we should give time to answer the questions. That has nothing to do with the question, and I would indulge you to take a look at what kind of relevance her answer has to the question at hand.
Thank you for that point of order. Yes, Minister, to be relevant, and it was so MP Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll answer my own question since, unfortunately, you're unwilling to, and I say that with the greatest respect. For the first quarter, it was negative 0.6. For the second quarter, it was negative 0.28. RBC predicts it per capita will be negative 0.31. Canadians are getting poorer, Minister. In the U.S., the average GDP per capita is about $80,000. In Canada, it's a little over $50,000. That's a $30,000 gap. That gap has never been bigger. GDP relates directly to the wealth of the nation. And you know what? It's not the super wealthy. It's not the Trudeaus and the Morneaus that get hurt. It's the people at the lowest end of the spectrum. Because when you lose 10% of your wealth and you're a Morneau, that hurts a little bit. But when you're a single mom just trying to get to the end of the month, that means you don't get to feed your kids. So with the greatest of respect, Minister, could you please just comment on per capita GDP? Just tell the constituents of Northumberland, Peterborough South, that what their experience is real, that when they're going to food banks, that they're struggling, that you have some concern for that.
I have a great deal of concern for Canadians who are struggling in a very challenging economic environment right now. And that is why this bill, that we should actually be debating the measures in the bill, and other parties have put questions specifically to the measures. This bill is about getting more housing built, and building more housing is a direct answer to affordability challenges. This bill is about creating more competition in the grocery sector. That is also a direct answer to housing challenges. But with due respect, Mr. Lawrence, speaking about struggling single mothers in your riding, They are helped by our early learning and childcare program. That has cut the cost of childcare by 50%, and your party voted against it. They are helped
Thank
by
you.
the Canada Child
Thank you very
Benefit,
much,
and
Minister.
your party
Thank
is
you,
proposing
Minister. I'm
to
just at
cut
the end of my time.
all of these measures.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we did vote for that, Mr. Chambers. You're absolutely correct. I just want to repeat something that you said in 2015. The OECD has cut its 2015 GDP forecast to Canada to a dismal 1.5. By the way, that is now predicted to be 1.3 this year. By the way of excuse, the minister today claimed we're doing better than most developed countries. That is not true. The OECD puts us behind Australia, Germany, Israel, Netherlands, South Korea, Sweden, US, and UK. In per capita numbers, we're behind all those countries today. This is no global problem. As the government likes to pretend is the excuse for shoddy management, this is a made-in-Canada runway to recession.
Thank you.
Do you still agree with that?
MP Lawrence, that's the time, actually. And now we're going to MP Zerowitz.